Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Battle Gamer, and just on the horizon, we have Howl of the Wild, which is going to have so many new character options. I'm sure you, like myself, cannot wait, but we have to, at least for another couple weeks. So, in the meantime, I'm going to go over all the character options in the new Tian Xia World Guide, talking about mostly these gods behind me. Well, one of them specifically. I believe this one is actually Shaylin in her Tian Xia form, anyway. And we're also going to talk about the new rituals that offer some very interesting things. But obviously, this book is not really designed for mostly player options rather than just adding lore that you can add to your characters. And if you want to see interesting lore about the book, I recommend going and checking out Glue Boy's channel over here. The guy's wonderful. He's my co-host on Table Talk. I don't shout him out enough, but he does very fun, interesting lore for both Pathfinder and, well, both for Pathfinder and many other games. He's a real chill dude. So if you want a lore channel that is fun to listen to and easy to watch, I recommend going out and checking out his channel. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and talk about what cool character options we have here in this book. Also, quick stop before we get to the gods. They have this wonderful pronunciation guide here for all of the gods, so I'll be doing my best to be using these over the course of the video. But I just figured I'd mention it because it's honestly very nice to have this stuff available in the book. First up, we have Bekho, who is kind of modeled after the Byakko, if you're not familiar from a lot of, like, I believe it's Japanese, but it might just be like the Eastern range, like the Eastern Peninsula range. The tiger. This god is very interesting. This is the perfect god for anyone who is like a medical practitioner, really good into like natural elements, nature elements. And actually, one of the things I really like is Beko, even though nature and seasons is their purview, it's more of the transient time between different seasons, which I think is very cool. So it's all about change, really. And so, along with the normal edicts and anathema you would expect for a god, the divine attributes for Bekho would be strength or wisdom. This is mostly relevant for the raised by belief background, which is a background choice that gives you some pretty cool stuff. You get to pick one of the divine attributes as your own, as well as the divine skill. You also gain assurance in that divine skill, as well as a lore related to the god in question. It's a pretty interesting background, and it's a really good one because you can use it for more than just clerics or champions. Any character can really be raised as a believer of a god, which I think is really cool. And so, not all these things are just for clerics, I should specify. More, if you want to be someone who follows a specific god, then this offers a lot of interesting options, like the divine attribute and the divine skill that you can pick up with just the background. And as well, if you ever multi-class archetype into cleric to pick up like the divine initiate, so you can get their focus spells, you can see the domains here, which we have change, and you'll notice some text in parentheses, which is divine mysteries. So this book is prepped for Divine Mysteries, which is coming out in November, and Player Core 2. So we actually get a little bit of information, as you can see here, Player Core 2 with the 3rd level cleric spell gained, which is Animal Vision. Very interesting, very, very cool. So we get some little peeks into some future books. It's something I'm very excited about. But domains for Beko anyway are change, healing, nature, and truth. Now, if you're a cleric, you gain additional access to Thunderstrike, Animal Vision, and Tree of Seasons. Tree of Seasons is such a good spell. This is a harm or heal divine font, and you can choose to be holy, so you can be neutral or holy, whichever you choose. And one of my favorite parts about this one is the favored weapon is the katana, which is really cool. So if you're going the war priest route, Katana is really not a bad weapon to utilize. This also has the alternate domains of duty and might. So yeah, Bekko, very interesting. A god of nature, healing, forgiveness, and trying to keep friend groups together. And the avatar spell, not all these gods will have their avatar spells, but some of them will. We have, you get a 70-foot speed and a 70-foot fly speed, which are both really, really fast, and you ignore difficult and greater difficult terrain. The katana is your melee weapon, and it gains a 15-foot reach. And as well, it does 68 plus 6 slashing damage. And you get the Tiger's Piercing Gaze, a really good range weapon that does 6d6 plus 3 mental damage. So, Bekko, very interesting god. One I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in using moving forward. Next up, we have Daikitsu, which is the Lady of Foxes. Her areas of concern are agriculture, craftsmanship, kitsune rice. She is like the common person's god. She is definitely someone who, if your character is very interested in like helping communities, helping people, just being a generally good person and very grounded and humble with the people, the Lady of Foxes is definitely not a bad choice. She has the divine attributes of dexterity and intelligence. The cleric spell she gives the ability to use is pest form, which I'm surprised is not foxes specifically, because obviously Lady of Foxes, but pest form, humanoid form, and illusory scene. So a lot of things for moving around, subtly without people noticing you or being able to trick people. Very, very, very good. She has only the divine healing font. You can choose to be holy if you follow Daikitsu. Her divine skill is crafting, which is very good. I really like crafting as a divine skill. It's a very good one to pick up because mostly, honestly, if you're not going into major crafting, it's really good for just repairing gear that gets broken. So you can use it on a lot of different items that get broken pretty easy. Her domains are change, creation, family, and nature. And she has an ultra domain in earth, and she uses the flail. So flail is not a bad weapon. It's a d6 weapon that has the sweep, disarm, and trip. All really good maneuvers, especially trip and disarm, because disarm got buffed, and sweep can be really good if you're doing an area attack kind of build. So overall, Daikitsu is very, very good, very interesting. And I believe she also has her avatar form here is you get a 60-foot speed, no fly speed, you ignore difficult terrain, and you're immune to immobilize. So honestly, compared to Bekho, this is definitely not as good mobility wise. But that being what it is, her weapon is about the same. It is just a reach 15-foot flail, so it doesn't have the other traits, which is very strange. 68 plus 6 bludgeoning damage. And then she has her ranged Foxfire, which is 120 feet, and it does 6d6 plus 6 mental damage. So not the strongest avatar form, I have to admit, but immunity to immobilize can be very handy. Overall, if you like foxes and if you want to have a very humble but helpful character, Daikitsu is definitely going to be one for you. Almost in stark contrast to Daikitsu, we have Fumeyoshi. Fumeyoshi? Yeah. Fumeyoshi? I it's Yo, I think. Y-O. Here's the pronunciation guide, and even with this, I believe that's Yoshi. So Fumeyoshi. Fumeyoshi is definitely a more evil-ish kind of god, even though we don't have alignment. It's a god of those who are envious, who would kill to gain something better, those who are jealous, those who wish to gain more than they have. So if you're playing a much more devious character, Fumeyoshi might be a good one. They're also like a god of undead, but I didn't really find much in here specifically in the text here about the undead nature. So another, I guess, a good undead god, because I don't think there's a better one if you are from Tian Xia. So areas of concern are envy, graves, infamy, and the undead. And they also have a very interesting anathema, which is pass by food without stealing a bite. So if you go down a market, you have to go and like grab a piece from a stall, just steal it and take a bite out of it. You don't even have to eat all of it. You just have to go and take a bite out of it. A very weird, definitely a difficult character concept for sure, and one that might cause problems. But I'm sure there's some inventive players out there who can really make use of it. The divine attributes for Fumoshi is Constitution and Charisma. The cleric spells are really good. They have Grim Tendrils, a super good spell, Feast of Ashes, and Possession. So all very good, very offensive spells. And going on that line, we have the Divine Font of Harm, good for any characters or clerics specifically who want to heal undead party members as well as be offensively capable. You must choose unholy if you follow Fumoshi, so you have to be careful against anything holy. The divine skill is intimidation, makes a ton of sense. The domains are ambition, destruction, earth, undeath, and the alternate domain is indulgence. And their favored weapon is the Naginata. The Naginata is a really good weapon. It is a D8 weapon that has the reach and deadly D8 and versatile piercing. It's a really good two-handed weapon for anyone who is like a war priest or anyone who wants to do anything around favorite weapons for gods. Overall, Fumoshi is really, really interesting. The avatar form is actually one of the most interesting avatar forms. So we have a 60-foot move speed, which is really good, a burrow speed of 40 feet, and a fly speed of 60 feet. A very versatile and very dynamic god as far as movement is concerned for the avatar form. We have the Vengeful Naginata, which has a reach of 20 feet, a deadly D8, and versatile piercing. So gains all the traits of their weapon, which it's weird that Daikitsu does not have all that. Though it only does a 68 plus 6 slashing damage. And the range is Life Draining Stare. Now, this one's really good because it gives you, it's a range of 120 feet. It does 6d6 void damage, plus the caster gains 5 temporary hit points. I don't know. Okay, so I guess it does work that way. So Avatar form does give you a bunch of temp HP. So I guess the range strike is not as good, except for the fact that it does void damage, which is a pretty decent damage type, until after you get that initial health removed. So something to keep in mind when you pick up this particular avatar. You're not going to be making the most use out of Life Draining Stare until after that initial batch of temp HP has been worn through. Fumoshi is definitely a more evil kind of god, but definitely has some fun things and has some interesting concepts with like the god of the moon, for instance. So I think there's a lot that can be done with this god, and I love their godly symbol. This particular mask is very good for iconography. Next up, we have General Susumu, which is a very easy name, so I very much appreciate that. This is a very interesting god, because Susumu is a god who's very focused on the more negative aspects of war, but not necessarily in an evil way. Sometimes, yes, as you can see for divine sanctification, blah, you have the ability to choose unholy, so you can represent the more darker aspects of war. But this character is not necessarily evil, but is a god that represents the horrors of war and the hard aspects of war. The areas of concern are fear, glory, warfare, and death. So any characters who acknowledge the place war has as far as different cultures are, and who represents the innate clashes that come from different types of people. General Susumu can be a very interesting god, even if you are playing a more, at least neutral-esque kind of aligned character. Again, no alignments, but you know what I mean, in a general sense. You're a character who understands that war might sometimes be necessary if you're being oppressed, and is willing to take that dive. And some interesting parts here. So, for the edicts, to seek glory in battle, loudly proclaim your victories, protect your possessions and strongholds. All things I think most characters would be able to do. And the anathema is just to cower from fights, refuse a challenge from an equal, mistreat your weapons, or abuse your mount. So you can see here, even though General Susumu is, again, potentially an unholy god, you definitely, most players can make use of the edicts and anathema, which is really good for the champions or clerics or just characters in general who want to follow this god. Now, the divine attributes are strength and dexterity. The cleric spells are really, really good, and something I really recommend if you're going a war priest to consider General Susumu, because you get Sure Strike, which is a really good spell. You get Wall of Wind, and you get Weapon Storm. All you have access to, which is very solid. Now, there's only the Harm Divine fonts, and we already mentioned you can choose to be unholy for your divine sanctification. Athletics is a really good divine skill, really good for a war priest as well. And the domains are confidence, destruction, might, and zeal. No alternate domains, which I find is interesting. And we have the classic longbow. So if you like a weapon that has really good range, one of the better range weapons, not the same as the composite longbow, which is unfortunate. So you don't really get to use as much strength with it, but still a pretty good weapon nonetheless. General Susumu might be for you, and the avatar is, you understandably, also really good. You get a 50-foot move speed, you get a 50-foot fly speed, but only when mounted. So giving extra reason for characters to look into either Cavalier, which would blend really well with this kind of build, or maybe Beastmaster as well. And you don't even technically need to have those. You just need to have a riding animal available. The weapon is the katana, which is very interesting, but I guess they just didn't want every god to have a katana, so I guess it makes sense. And it's always good to have a favored weapon be a ranged weapon for people who want to mix up the builds a little bit more. It has deadly 3d8, which is pretty nuts. It's also two-handed, D10, and a reach 15, so all really, really good weapon stats. Gives you 68 plus 8 slashing damage, and as a ranged weapon, you get the longbow, understandably with a range of 120 feet, and it does 66 plus 3 piercing damage, which compared to many of the avatars that we're seeing here, most of them doing kind of mental and other kinds of damages, just having piercing damage here is actually pretty good in consideration. So if you want to be a character who represents the hard aspects of war and the necessary evils that come with it, General Susumu might be for you. Next up, we have Heifeng, which it looks like Heifeng, I know, but it's Heifeng, I guess, is the best way to pronounce it. And this is a very interesting god. Now, this god is mostly related to the Tengu. It's a Tengu god, so I guess it really makes sense. But as a god, Heifeng is very fun. He's a very interesting god. He represents characters who would be very boisterous, very almost obnoxious, and willing to get back at those who disrespect you. So even though under divine sanctification we have unholy, if you're a Tengu, you can actually choose holy, which I think is very fascinating. And a change from the original writing in the, I believe it was Gods and Magic book. So Heifeng has the Sea, Storms, Tengu, and Sailors traits, so very interesting. Very good for anyone who wants to be like from the seas of the Tian Xia region, or someone who respects the storms that come at night. The edicts are fun. Follow your passions. Make token attempts to apologize to those you have wronged. Respect the power of the sea and sky, and encourage flashy entertainment. You, as anathema, you cannot fake friendships with those you despise. You cannot disrespect Heifeng or Heifeng's estranged wife, Lady. I didn't read her name yet. Xingxi. Ignore an affront to you, or Heifeng or Lady Xingxi. So pretty much a lot of stuff that most players can really do, no matter what their kind of general, I guess, alignments for lack of a better word, is divine attributes are Constitution, Charisma. The cleric spells are Gust of Wind, Hydraulic Torrent, and Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning's a really, really good spell to pick up if you're a cleric. Divine fonts are Harm or Heal, so not completely leaning on the more unholy aspects. As I mean, we already talked about in the Divine Sanctification part. Divine Skills, Performance, which is very fun. Domains are Air, Indulgence, Lightning, and Water, with the alternate domains of Destruction and Travel. And we have the Ji Wondo, I believe is how it's pronounced, which is a ranged sword. Honestly, not a bad one. It's a D8 one-handed weapon, which is really cool with the sweep trait, and it is uncommon as well. Definitely not bad ones. Now, I do believe Heyun is in the, I think it's the player core or the GM core. I don't know which, so we don't actually have the avatar stats here, but definitely a fun character if you like playing a character for a more fickle god, or you like following this fickle god, or if you like a different take on kind of the sailor, sea and storms kind of aspects of gods. I really think Heyun is a lot of fun. All right, so I have to bring you up here. There's Irori, which everyone I've heard ever pronounces Irori, but we have Iluli. Iluli. I guess of the phonetics here, this is one of the harder ones, I have to admit. Iloli. I'm just gonna say Irori. Everyone else pronounces it that way. That one is a little bit difficult for me. I apologize, but Irori is a core god. I don't really need to go too much into Irori, so we're just not going to spend a lot of time here. Very fun god. If you're not familiar, though, I will make mention that Irori is the god of perfection, so it doesn't really matter if you're more holy or unholy aligned. Irori wants everyone to become the best that they can be. So if you're going to do anything, if you're going to conquer the world or save the world, you have to do it to your utmost best. And a very fun god. It's a god of perfection. If you like the idea of constant self-improvement and being the best you can possibly be, Irori is going to be the god for you. Next up, we have Jinli, another very easy name that I'm very happy for. The Golden Dragon card. This is the god of overcoming difficulties to try and try and try again. Similarly to Irori, we have another god who isn't really about self-perfection, though, but is about constantly challenging and improving yourself. A very interesting god. I really like the story around it, where it's just a god of constant preservation to push yourself to new levels. So we have divine attributes, strength, and wisdom. Makes a lot of sense. Along with the divine skill of athletics, if you want to go with the raised by belief background. We have the cleric spells, jump, feet to fins, and hydraulic torrent. All kind of fun ones, more kind of goofy. I find Jin Li to be more of a god you follow rather than a god you base a character around, but still, it's a lot of fun. Divine Font is only healing, and actually no divine sanctification. So this god doesn't really lean in any particular direction. It's just to keep pushing forward. And along with that, we'll mention some of the anathema. We have give up without trying, dismiss or mock someone else's effort, take success for granted, discount the power of beginner's luck or luck in general. I like the beginner's luck or luck in general part. So it would be still kind of hard to be a general like asshole if you were following Jin Lee. So hopefully that gives you a general idea of what you should do. Definitely check these out on Archive of Nethys when they finally get updated, or if you have the book, definitely a god to look into. Domains are ambition, makes tons of sense. Change, might, and toil, which you can see here, came from Rage of Elements. So yeah, really good one. We also have the alternate domains of water and luck, makes a ton of sense. And we have the Sun Setsukon. So a very cool weapon. It is essentially a 3-section staff that gives you the backswing and disarm traits. as well as being a monk weapon, which is a very interesting way to gain access to this weapon without playing a monk. And being a monk weapon, all monk weapons have the parry trait. So, a really good two-handed weapon you want to use if you want to play maybe like a different idea of War Priest, who still has some defensive capabilities to it. Honestly, I really like the idea of a much more martial arts Miram style of War Priest. So this is actually a very good god for that idea, just due to the access to the Sun Setsukan. Overall, a very interesting god. And we have another avatar here. We have a land speed of 30 feet, which is funny because it might actually be slower than your character at the level that you gain access to avatar. You gain a swim speed of 60 feet, and you ignore difficult terrain and greater difficult terrain. Though it does allow you to breathe underwater, which is pretty rare. So it is one of the few really good avatar spells for underwater combat or water combat in general. The melee is smashing flop, so you do the Magikarp splash maneuver, though it does have backswing and a reach of 115 feet, and has the shove trait, which might be interesting. Does a 68 plus 6 bludgeoning damage, and then range we have Mighty Splash. Yeah, it's fun. A 60-foot one. This one does 4d6 plus 3 bludgeoning damage, plus an additional d6 bludgeoning splash damage. The caster is also immune to this damage. So, one of the few gods that has an area attack, essentially, with their ranged attack, which is actually pretty cool. So, Jin Li here is definitely one of the more interesting gods from this book and very fun. So back up here to the pronunciation guide. There's no pronunciation for the god I'm about to do next. So if I do it wrong, don't blame me. The book did not offer it to me. It might be somewhere else in the book, but it's not in this section. We're going to talk about Kofusashi. So Kofusashi is a very fun god. It's a god of just kind of being chill and bringing happiness and kind of being more of a vagabond style. So their concerns are abundance, discovery, happiness, and prosperity. So predominantly a good guy kind of god. Kofusashi is very fun. The laughing god. Glue Boy actually talks about him in this video. So if you want to get some more information, I'd definitely go check it out. We'll talk about the edicts and anathema because I feel like they're very interesting and will change how you play your character if you decide to follow this god. Support local businesses, bring prosperity to your community, sample life's pleasures. Very fun things, very easy things to do for your roleplay. The anathema, though, is where it gets a little hard because you can't become tied to one location, judge another based on sexual desires or gender roles, harm innocence, spread despair, or commit murder. Commit murder being kind of one of the more important ones around here, as it's kind of it's always hard to determine what constitutes murder. Essentially, you just can't do anything unless it's like in self-defense is the only way to avoid the anathema here. So if you're playing more pacifist, it's a lot easier, but just something to keep in mind. Kofusashi has dexterity and constitution for divine attributes, as well as the performance divine skill. So very fun. A lot of different character ideas can kind of go around that. Cleric spells are Soothe, such a good spell, Laughing Fit, and Uncontrollable Dance. We have an 8th level spell here, which is pretty cool. Divine Font is Healing, and you can choose for your Divine Sanctification to be Holy. Domains are Luck, Passion, Travel, and Wealth, with the alternate domain of Fate. And we have the Simple Staff, which is actually not a simple weapon. My bad, it actually is a simple weapon. So if you have it does a d4, it's one-handed, though it has the two-handed 1d8. It's not a bad weapon for sure, but definitely not one I'd make a War Priest build on. But hey, if you want to take some Divine Simplicity and add it to increase the base damage by a d6, I don't think it improves the two-handed quality though. I'm not sure about that, but I'm pretty sure that's actually not how it works. Regardless, it's not bad, and it's I guess, a decent one-handed weapon. And we do have an avatar for him, which is very interesting with this god in particular. Now, you get a 70-foot speed and a 70-foot fly speed. You ignore difficult and greater difficult terrains. So, really decent movement options. You become very, very fast. The walking stick melee attack, which is range 15 feet and two-handed d8, does a 64 plus 6 bludgeoning damage. Probably one of the lesser uh, weapons here, obviously. And a ranged weapon, we have Springing Jindo Bites, which is range 60 feet. It's 5d6 plus 3 piercing plus 1d6 persistent bleed. I believe Jindo is the dog, if I'm not mistaken here. It should mention somewhere. Yeah, Jindo is the dog. So you do get a ranged dog attack if you go with the avatar of Kofusashi. So Kofusashi is a very fun god, very fun, loving, very good for any character who wants to be kind of fun loving, easygoing, and just wants to have a good time kind of character. So lots of great role playing potential here. All right, next up we have Lady Jinshi, which I did actually look it up for this one. So it's Lady Jinshi. Very interesting, another Tengu god. A god you definitely want to follow if you enjoy stuff like the arts, poetry specifically, and transient periods of time like dusk and twilight. Her areas of concern are daybreak, liminal spaces in twilight, and solitude. A very interesting god, and one is just enjoy art and don't defile beautiful things, and don't be like her anathema are destroy a natural plum tree, drink excessive amounts of alcohol, act rude or boorish, commit torture or murder, knowingly harm an innocent. So essentially, don't be hey fun is her anathema, which is very very funny. Divine attributes are intelligence and wisdom. Her spells are dizzying colors, enthrall, and project image. Not the best I would have picked. Honestly, I would have probably done some more. Enthrall is just not one of my favorite spells, to be honest. I think there's some other spells that could have been done better. But oh well. Divine Font is heal. You can choose to be holy if you want. So she definitely leans more on the kinder side of things when it comes to gods. Her domains are creation, glyph, knowledge, and repose, with the alternate domains of moon, nature, and sun. And her weapon is the fighting fan. The fighting fan being a very interesting weapon, in my opinion. It is an agile finesse weapon with deadly d6 and backstabber. So potentially really good for characters who like to keep enemies off guard. There's a lot of fun ways. Rogues could definitely use it, which I think is interesting. It is a monk weapon, and I guess not all monk weapons have parry tree. I just assumed as much because most of them do. It's kind of sad that this one doesn't, but it's a D4. It's in the knife group. It's actually not a bad weapon if you ask me. And as well, we have the avatar form here. She gives you a 50-foot move speed, a 50-foot fly speed. You ignore difficult terrain and greater difficult terrain. Her melee attack is the Lotus Fan, which is deadly 3d6, pretty good. Finesse, non-lethal, and reach 15 feet. So non-lethal is important to mention. So one of the few avatar forms that has a very easy way of knocking people out rather than killing them. The weapon also does 66 plus 6 slashing damage with that deadly 3d6. Honestly, it's really not a bad weapon. And range weapon is Cascading Twilight Curtain. A badass name, honestly. It's non-lethal, range 120 feet, and it does 66 plus 3 mental damage. Another really good non-lethal attack. So if you want to play a kind and somewhat poetic rogue in a new kind of plum colored light, I definitely think you should take a look at Lady Jinshi. Next up, we have Lady Nambo, who is a very interesting goddess. If you are want to play a character who is either a spurned lover or someone who has like survived and witnessed the power of natural disasters, as Lady Nambo is around disasters specifically. She's very interesting now, even though she does have unholy leanings, and she's also like a really cool, like dragon-esque kind of god, which is very cool. I mean, in her story, she was a dragon who took the guise of a woman. She's very interesting, though I think her edicts and anathema are a little bit more difficult. So her edicts are revel in destruction, make natural disasters worse, which I don't know how you make a natural disaster worse, but whatever, and allow natural disasters to take their due. But this is the anathema is very strange because allow a natural disaster to completely destroy a community, or leave a group with no survivors. So you're supposed to make natural disasters worse, but you can't allow it to destroy a community completely or leave no survivors. I don't know how that's supposed to work together, but that's just what we got. Her divine attributes are strength and constitution with the divine skill of nature, which is not too bad. Her cleric spells are breathe fire, good one, control water, and phantasmal calamity. So really good to add to your cleric for some good offensive capabilities. You can only have the divine harm font, and you must choose unholy, which again leaves the anathema to be very strange to me. I don't know. Very interesting. Now, her domains are destruction, fire, plague, and water, and with the alternate domains of dust, earth, lightning, sorrow, and sorrow. So she has a lot of alternate domains. Very, very interesting. And her weapon is the Warhammer, actually, which is hard to see in her picture here, but you can see a little Warhammer in her offhand. Warhammer is a not too bad one-handed weapon that does a D8 damage and has shove. So honestly, not a bad weapon for a war priest to have, or anyone who chooses to follow Lady at Nambo here. Her avatar is really cool. Speed 70 feet, fly speed 70 feet, and ignore difficult terrain and greater difficult terrain. Her destructive Warhammer weapon is a 15-foot reach, sweep, and trip weapon, which is funny because it also has disarm, which is interesting. None of these are sweep, which is what Warhammer shove, which is what Warhammer actually has. So I don't know. Does 6d8 plus 6 bludgeoning damage, so a lot of damage. And her range attack is Sufferable Storm Surge, which is an air and electricity attack with a range of 120 feet. It also has the water trait, so many elemental traits here, which can be used in combination with a lot of very interesting spells. Now, this is a weapon that does, or this is a range attack that does 4d6 bludgeoning damage plus a d6 electricity splash damage, though you are immune to the splash damage. So again, really good range. Her avatar form is honestly very, very powerful. So if you like natural disasters, or you want to make a character who's about, surviving natural disasters, or being a spurned lover in some way, I think there's some very interesting character ideas that can come out from following Lady Nambo. Now, I know the video is running a little bit long, and I think we're just past halfway with the gods, so if you wouldn't mind, please leave a like on this video so other people get to see some of the really cool gods that came from the Tian Xia guide, as well as some of the other really cool things that we have yet to talk about. And as well, if you want to see more stuff like this, or more specifically, if you want to see what's coming out in How of the Wild, I'll be doing a video on pretty much everything How of the Wild has to offer in the next couple weeks. I recommend subscribing to the channel. And if you don't want to miss any of the content, go down into the description and join our official Discord, where you'll always get a notification whenever the channel comes out with a new video or goes live, which we do twice a week. But anyway, let's go ahead and continue on with the next god here, which is the Lady of the North Star. I don't even need to have a translation guide for this one, or a pronunciation guide, as just a very simple god. Now, this god is very, very interesting because it's a very mysterious god. She's got links to immortality. She has a preference, I guess, for those who are dying of old age. Those are the ones she tends to seek. So if you actually want to play a character who is in their twilight years of their life, they're getting towards the end of their life, but they've been given some new kind of vigor and vitality by maybe a vision of the Lady of the North Star, a very interesting character concept. Her areas of concern are secrets, remembrance, winter, and immortality. The immortality part means they're going to be at odds with those with Pharasma, which can be really fun. And she also doesn't make a bad god for wizards as well, as her edicts are seek lost knowledge, uncover hidden mysteries, honor that which is forgotten, and pursue immortality. So kind of very wizardy. So a very wizardy kind of god, which I think is very interesting. Now, her anathema are to destroy sources of knowledge, make public that which should remain secrets. So you don't want to spread every piece of knowledge that you find. Desecrate a memorial, grow complacent about one's ignorance and mortality, commit torture or murder, and knowingly harm an innocent. So a more kind of good leaning god for sure. That has like she makes a really good god for those who are like wizards, maybe even some sorcerers, those who like to find new stuff. I think she's just a really fascinating god. Now her cleric spells are Penumbral Shroud, Stupefy, and Blanket of Stars, which we see another player core 2 spell that we're going to be getting, which is very, very cool. Now we have the Harm or Heal fonts, and you can choose to be holy for divine sanctification. Her divine skill, I think I forgot her attribute. So her divine attributes are intelligence, wisdom, makes a ton of sense. And her divine skill is occultism, also makes a lot of sense. And her domains are cold, darkness, secrecy, and vigil, along with the alternate domains of change and star. Some really good domains here, actually, if you go into the initiate feats. And her favorite weapon is the glaive, another really solid weapon. While not everyone's favorite polearm weapon, it's definitely one of the good ones. This one has the forceful traits. It is a reach weapon. It has a deadly D8 and it does D8 damage. A very good weapon overall, one I particularly like. And her avatar form stuff is very interesting. She's got good movement speed with the speed of 70 feet and a fly speed of 70 feet. She also ignores difficult terrain and greater difficult terrain. Or she gives, I guess, her avatar anyway. Melee is the glaive, deadly D8, reach 20 feet. Not a lot of interesting stuff, and it loses forceful, which is interesting. Damage is 68 plus 6 slashing damage, though, so on the upper end of damages for avatar spells. Her range is Chilling Revelation, 120 feet, and is versatile cold. So this does 66 plus 3 mental damage or cold damage. Overall, if you want a mysterious ice-themed god with a very cool, like jade cicada-esque design, I definitely would recommend checking out the Lady of the North Star. All right, next up is a very fun one, which is Lao Shu Po, a very fun god. Yeah, look at that. Look at that beautiful face. Very interesting one. So a goddess of rats, but not like the Yosoki, which is very interesting, but more a goddess of the downtrodden and thieves. So perfect for your thiefy rogue character, not necessarily an evil god, but just a god of, protecting oneself and one's own. Her areas of concern are knights, rats, and thieves. Actually, interesting story. She stole the aspect of knight from, I believe, Fumoshi, which is very, very interesting. And I like the anathema. You cannot work honestly for something you could steal instead, and you can't risk too much for another creature. So definitely a much more selfish character. A character definitely you can evolve for sure. And if you're not playing a cleric, obviously breaking the anathema is not necessarily a bad thing for things like character growth, but definitely a very fun, like again, that street urchin thief kind of god to follow. The divine attributes for Lao Shupo is the dexterity and intelligence, with thievery as your divine skill. So again, another good one for our rogue characters. Cleric spells are summon animals, which is rodents only, which is kind of fun. Knock and Veil of Privacy. You can only take the divine font of Harm, and you can choose Unholy, as I mentioned before. And as well, the domains are Darkness, Luck, Swarm, and Trickery, with the alternates of Secrecy and Wealth, which is very fun. I like the idea of a rogue moving to Shadow Dancer and taking maybe some like cleric archetype stuff to pick up some of the divine initiate stuff. I think there's some really cool combinations that you can go with there. And as well, favorite weapon is just the dagger, which is, a very simple weapon. It's an agile finesse weapon with a thrown 10 feet, which is honestly kind of bad. I wish they'd bump it up to 20. But I guess because it's a simple weapon, which it is a simple weapon for those who want divine simplicity, to make it a D6, which is honestly a pretty good D6 weapon if you consider all the traits. Also, it's versatile slashing, so not a bad weapon, all things considered. Lao Shupa also has a pretty okay avatar. Good speeds, mind you, a speed of 70 feet with climb speed of 70 feet, and you're immune to being frightened, which is actually very interesting. The bite is just a 15-foot, pretty good damage, 66 plus 6 piercing damage. And ranged is Nightmare Rat Swarm, which is kind of fun. 120 feet. It does 3d6 plus 2 piercing damage plus 3d6 plus 2 mental damage, which is actually better than most range weapons that gods offer at the same range that a lot of gods offer. So, not a bad one. It's got some really fun things here. So, honestly, Lao Shupo is a very fun god and definitely very fun stories that can be had with this one. Next up, we have Mugura and Niritz, which is a very interesting one. A lot more of an India-inspired god set, which is interesting. It is a dual god whose the characters are ambiguous, but they're essentially a pair of lovers who are constantly rivaling each other. So the area concerns are dance and storytelling, lovers and rivals, fame and gratitude. A very fun god for a dual character concept for two characters who, like they're constant rivals, but at the same time, you're like, get a room kind of stuff. Very fun for that kind of stuff. I really like the idea of a god that can tie two characters very keenly together and have some very interesting themes for those two characters. So, funny enough, a really good collaboration god with another player at your table. It's also a god that's very based on like dance and storytelling in addition to everything. So, perfect for like a bard story. Like I know that's super cliche, but this one is actually kind of a cool kind of rendition of that overplayed trope. Just, something to keep in mind. Their divine attributes are dexterity and charisma with the divine skill of performance, so it makes perfect sense. The cleric spells are shockwave, hypnotize, and Mirror's Misfortune, which is very fun. Divine Font of Harm or Heal, and can choose holy or unholy. So you can even have light and dark aspects with this dual design, which I think is very fun. Now, their domains are ambition, freedom, passion, and repose, without any alternate kind of domains. And their favored weapon is the fist. So again, more of a gods that are great to follow if you're doing an interesting character concept, not necessarily like war priest or even cleric designs, but there are some things you can obviously pick up here. And having the fist be your weapon is very interesting. That means pretty much any unarmed style you use can be considered your favorite weapons, which does have some really fun aspects to it. And as their avatar, it's it's kind of weird that there's no like duality or kind of dual aspect to it, but I guess that makes sense. It's a 60-foot fly speed, a 70-foot movement speed with no additional things. So kind of one of the worst movement speeds we've seen so far. Melee is sweeping leg, agile, finesse, reach, and 100 or 15 feet with a 68 plus 6 bludgeoning damage. So really good damage there. And the ranged is echoing bells, which is a range of 120 feet and does 66 plus 6 sonic damage, which is quite rare. So overall, gods that I think are much more better for the aspects of like character ideas or working in collaboration with another party member, but there are some interesting things here if you do want to follow them as a character who uses more of these kind of character options. Next up, we have Nali Nivati, a kind of almost inspired of, well, obviously Buddhist stuff, but in addition, very Vietnamese in style, which I think is really cool. She is like the mother of serpents as well as the serpent's kiss. Very interesting god, though I do think there's actually an error here as far as some of her character options, which we're going to look into in a moment. She is also a daughter of Ravithra, which is a very interesting god in concept. If you've looked into, I would go into it, but it would be explaining a lot more, and this video is already getting much longer than I intended for. A great god for sorcerers, actually, as her areas of concern are family, fertility, snakes, and sorcery. Uh, her edicts are to seek out magic and use it, use poison and heal poisons, as well as bear or adopt children and raise snakes. A lot of fun things, a lot of really fun things that you can do as a character. Her divine attributes are wisdom and charisma. And her divine skill is Arcana. So very, very interesting. Really great for characters who want to have a more magical touch, especially sorcerers. If you're taking the Raised by Beliefs background, now her cleric spells, I think, is a error because cleric spells are typically only 3 spells you gain access to. And even though this is a god of sorcery and stuff, and it does make sense, that does make it a little bit more unbalanced compared to many of the gods, especially because it's a spell of every spell level, which is besides 10th, which is really odd. So I think this is an error. There might be an errata coming out for this, so be aware. But talk with your GM, select 3 that you think are the best in your opinion, and there's really no problem with that. So the cleric spells are Charm, Invisibility, Lightning Bolt, Reflective Scales, Subconscious Suggestion, Mislead, Contingency, Confusing Colors, and Wrathful Storm. All really good spells. So again, just pick 3 of your favorites, and I think it works out just fine. This is a god that has Divine Harm or Heal for their fonts, and Sanctification of Holy or Unholy. So can be played with a lot of different character styles. Her domains are Magic Naga, which is a new one. I don't think there is a Naga domain currently coming out in Divine Mysteries. Passion and Wormkin. Wormkin is out, I believe. It's about anything serpents, dragon-esque, or anything reptilian kind of. Alternate domains of family and glyph makes tons of sense. And her favorite weapons are Jaws or the Urumi. The Urumi is a very cool weapon. It is a whip sword or cat o' nine tails sword. Though it's technically in the flail group, it has deadly D10 and sweep, and it's a one-handed weapon, and it's uncommon. A very cool weapon, but I actually really like the fact that it's Jaws, and it does say or. So you can't have both be your favorite weapon. But Jaws is very interesting because there's actually a lot of ancestries that do offer a jaw attack or some kind of bite attack, which I think a lot of those, like a fang attack, can also be considered jaw as well. So, there's some very interesting ways the favorite weapon could be done here. Like I said, a very fun god for any kind of sorcery based characters, and as well, the avatar is interesting. So we have just a speed of 70 feet, nothing else, which I find is very strange. And again, I keep saying it, but we've now come to the worst movement speed of any of the gods. Tail swipe finesse, 15 foot, does 68 bludgeoning damage, no bonus, and range venom spit, 30 feet, does 5d6 poison damage plus 1d6 persistent poison. Honestly, if you are going to use the avatar spell, the ranged attack is really the only one I could see being super worth even getting the avatar spell for. So just something to keep in mind. I do think she's very interesting, and maybe her kind of bad avatar is what makes up for her tons of cleric spells. I'm not sure. It just kind of breaks convention. So I don't know. I really like this god though. Nali Nivati is definitely a very fun god and can offer so much for any characters who decide to pursue her. Next up is one of the most interesting gods you can find here in the book, which is P. Deva. They are more of a conceptual god than they are a god of anything in particular. More of an amalgamated number of souls that makes one divine entity, very mysterious. Their areas of concern are people, the defenseless, and the collective good. This god is very, very much a god of the downtrodden, protecting those. If you want to play the protagonist, if you want to play someone who is going to go all out to defend those who can't protect themselves, this might be the god for you. Their divine attributes are Constitution Wisdom with the divine skill of Medicine. Very interesting, great for a medic character if you're playing a character who wants to do medical healing stuff without necessarily using like your Divine Flat, which in this case would only be the heal spell. Cleric spells are Soothe, Flicker, and Project Image. Not as many healing spells here as I would expect, but Soothe is just a very good one. Flicker and Project Image, though, does offer your character a somewhat ethereal, like not completely there aspect, which I like as a theme. Divine Sanctification for this god is you can choose to be holy, which is good. And for the domains is family, healing, protection, and repose, with the alternate domains of freedom and nature. And the favored weapon is the short bow, which is a really good kind of close ranged weapon. If you like the idea of like, this is a really good weapon pickup actually for just a standard, like a cloistered cleric, not even a war priest. The war priest can definitely make use of this, and it's a pretty good weapon for a lot of other builds as well as it is. It's a great weapon that has the deadly D10. So, I think there's a lot of things that can be done with the short bow, and I think this god's very fascinating. Just a more conceptual idea of a god, which is somewhat rare in the setting, actually. For the avatar, we also have some pretty decent stuff here. We have a move speed of 60 and a fly speed of 60. The attacks sound really cool, though. 1,000 grasping hands for the melee, which is deadly D8, reach 15 feet. It does a D66 plus 6 bludgeoning damage. Not as much damage as we've seen before, but I will say thematically one of the coolest kind of melee attacks that we've seen. And the range is Grudge of the Downtrodden. It is 120 feet, and it is a basic, essentially 66 plus 3 mental damage avatar. So Deva is definitely a interesting god. I think this one would be a very cool way to make your character very unique by using a very conceptual and more interesting god. And again, a really good god as kind of like a unchosen protagonist style, because this god isn't like necessarily a being that can choose people, as it's more of an amalgamate. So that being the case, I think there's some very fun, interesting character ideas around this one. Next up, we have Chijon, which is the master of medicine. This is a god that's best used for a pure pacifist character if you're planning on being like a cleric or champion. So really good for a redeemer champion specifically. Though a fun god that can be followed by any characters who like the idea of like medicine and treating people. Also a little bit of alchemy stuff, but not actually alchemy. Chijon is the areas of concern are cycles, elements, health, and medicine. Very, very interesting. Uh, his divine attributes are intelligence and wisdom, with the divine skill of medicine, which makes a ton of sense. The cleric spells are soothe, false vitality, and containment. All good spells, but a lot of them very, very low level. So just keep in mind if you plan on being a cleric. And I guess as well, anathema wise, you cannot deal lethal damage to another living creature unless it's a part of a necessary medical treatment. So you can't deal a killing blow. So that's just something. Well, you can't deal a killing blow, and potentially you can't deal a blow that like has bleeding damage, for instance, that might kill someone. Does that be considered lethal? So, there's just a lot of things here. Now, you can choose holy for this one, which is good. The domains for Chijon is the healing, knowledge, magic, and protection, with the alternate domains of air, earth, fire, nature, and water. Makes a ton of sense. And his favorite weapon is the mace. Mace is a simple weapon, one-handed D6, and it has a shove trait. If you take Divine Simplicity, it will become a warhammer, essentially. So, not a bad weapon, but definitely not the reason why you would pick Chijon anyway. Or Chijon. Yeah, Chijon has a speed of 60 feet and ignores difficult terrain. So not the worst we've seen, but definitely on the more slower side. Doesn't have many cool mobility things. Melee weapon is the mace. It does non-lethal, and it does 66 plus 6 bludgeoning damage. And range is acupoint strike, which you throw a needle into someone. Pretty cool. Non-lethal, range 120 feet, and does 66 plus 3 piercing damage. So another god that can do potentially non-lethal damage when dealing with enemies, which can be very good if maybe you're going a cloistered character. Honestly, just a really good character for selecting if you want to do the do no harm style medic doctor style characters. So yeah, that's about it. Next up, we have Shizuru, which is the ruler of heaven, the god of gods, another sun god, a really cool dragon god. She's very interesting. Shizuru is a god who reigns over ancestors, order, the sun, and growth. It's kind of the chivalrous main like core god. If you want to pray to the god of gods, the one who sits above all others, this might be the god for you. Her edicts are practice your chosen skill every day, honor your ancestors, protect nature and society from corruption and destruction. And an anathema, she has abandon a companion in need, harm the innocent, disrespect your ancestors, parlay with truce breakers, separate lovers, or cast an unholy spell. So, honestly, this is the champion god. If you want to be a champion of a particular god, she's a great one to select. Her cleric spells are Sure Strike, Reflective Scales, and Planar Palace. Her divine attributes are Strength and Wisdom, along with the divine skill of Society. So, really good for any kind of characters who want to have a better understanding, like might be a noble born kind of character, which would be very interesting. Divine Font can only be healing, and Divine Sanctification. I'm surprised can't isn't must be holy, because that's honestly what the impression I get from this god is. But it says can choose holy, so I don't know. I would probably make it must be holy. That just seems like Shizuru's main thing. Her domains are duty, perfection, sun, and vigil, with the alternate domain of sorrow. And the favorite weapon is the katana, which we already mentioned when we were talking with Beck Ho. So a very good, straightforward god, and I guess she is already in the player core or something, as we don't have the avatar stuff here, which is a little sad. I haven't looked into it personally, but I'm sure she has an avatar state or avatar spell version. So overall, not a bad god. I think she's really, really cool. All right, we have now the scariest god here by pure amount of pronunciation. I did look it up, but if I get it wrong, I'm trying. All right, so we have Sri Kali, Sri Taming, and Sri Baril. It's a triple-headed god that is the god of raiding, treasure, war, and contracts. Perfect for a character who is playing as a mercenary of some type, who has maybe some associations with like the sea or boats or something along those lines. And a very good, Gorum replacement, since we're going to be losing our Lord in Iron soon. Edicts are die in battle, revel in uh, protective violence, and support what is yours. And anathema is to lay waste to nature, kill indiscriminately without reason or conviction, and choose not to raid when it is needed. So, a very interesting god that kind of lies more on like the chaotic neutral scale, for lack of a better term. You not necessarily evil, and by this we can see in the divine sanctification here, we can choose either holy or unholy. So this you can represent your faith in this god in a multitude of ways. Their divine attributes are strength and dexterity, which makes a lot of sense, with the divine skill in society, which I'm actually very surprised with. Honestly, I'm thinking it'd be athletics or something. Their cleric spells are Sure Strike, Haste, and Control Water. Lots of really good ones. Haste is a really good pickup for clerics. The divine font is only harm, which does make sense. The domains are ambition, passion, perfection, and zeal, with alternate domains of duty, freedom, and pain. And the favored weapon is either the Chris or the Arquebus, which does give you a good opportunity to be a mercenary gunslinger who follows this god and uses their favorite weapon, which the Arquebus is not a bad weapon. But let's go ahead and take a look at first here the Chris, which is just a really good knife weapon. It is an agile finesse weapon with a deadly D8 and does do a D4 piercing damage. Not too exciting, but a good weapon in some cases, good for an offhanded weapon. And we have the Arquebus, which is the standard long range rifle, has a 150-foot range. It has deadly D10, it does D8, and it has the concussive trait. I'm sorry, not deadly D10, fatal D12, and it also has kickback. So the standard long range rifle, like lots of gunslingers end up using this weapon because it's just a very strong rifle overall. It's really, really good, and that makes the Shri trifecta god here. I'm not going to say all their names, so I'm just going to call Shri by their common starting syllable here. The Shri three-headed god here to be very fun, very interesting, and very capable of being used in a lot of characters. and potentially a ranged arquebus wielding war priest build, which I think is very, very fun. Now, the avatar is pretty strong with a speed of 60 feet and a swim speed of 120 feet, so great for pirate or sea based campaigns, with an immunity to being immobilized, which is very strong. Now, the 6-part weapon, using all of the weapons in their hands essentially, gives you the agile, deadly D10, reach 30 feet, and versatile bludgeoning and piercing weapon, and no range variant, but this does 6d10 plus 5 slashing damage, which means one of the strongest melee damages in the game for avatar spells, with the cost of having 0 ranged weapon potential, which I find is so weird considering the arquebus is one of their weapons, but the reach is 30 feet. So it's a good avatar spell, very powerful. It's just weird that they don't have a range attack with the arquebus, which is one of their favorite weapons. I don't know, but the Shri triple god here is very strong, very good, and can be used with a lot of different character types. So honestly, a very solid addition. We have the God of Gods, but not like the same as Shizuru. We have Sun Wukong. Everyone knows him. Everyone knows Journey to the West. It's a very good, like classic tale, and everyone should know Sun Wukong at this point. Lupo even talked about him in his video. So yeah, the Monkey King. The edicts: live freely, drink, play pranks, anathema, refuse a reasonable bet or duel, let social pressure change your behavior. That's pretty much everything you need to know about this god, because that's exactly Sun Wukong in his entirety. Divine attributes are strength and charisma. Makes a ton of sense with the divine skill of acrobatics, which is great if you want to play a tumbling character. So great if that's the raised by belief background you want to use. Divine font is harm or heal, and you can choose to be holy or unholy. He does not care as long as you're having a good time, which is great. The domains are indulgence, might, nature, and trickery, with the alternate domains of freedom, magic, protection, and travel. And his favorite weapon is, of course, the bow staff. This is a great weapon. It has the parry, reach, monk, and trip traits, two-handed D8 weapon. It's a pretty solid weapon, and great for any martial arts characters who want to, maybe dip into a bit for the sake of following the monkey god here. Avatar spells, really, really fun. We have a movement speed of 70 feet, a fly speed of 60 feet, and ignores difficult terrain and greater difficult terrain. The melee is the Rui Bang, which is the extending cudgel. It gives you backswing, finesse, forceful, reach, a reach of 30 feet, and sweep, and it does a 68 plus 8 bludgeoning damage with no ranged weapon, but it is a very long reach weapon, and it does have forceful, which is pretty good. Overall, a very fun god. A very fun god, though I will admit it's just like, I'm gonna play one of like the Vanera or the whatever the monkey ancestry is, the simian ancestry is, and I'm gonna follow Sun Wukong. So kind of very tropey if used incorrectly, but I think there are lots of really fun ways to incorporate following Sun Wukong into your characters. So honestly, a god that I think a lot of people can enjoy. All right, we're getting to the last set of gods. Thank you for sticking with me up until this point. I'm also really glad I looked into the pronunciation for this god, because I would have gotten it wrong. This is Skio. That's it. Skio is the Prince of the Moon. So a really good moon god to follow. A very sad tale. This is a god that was killed, brought back to life, and was never the same. Very forlorn, very distant. Has connection to souls, which is very interesting. Perfect for any characters who are like, maybe you are an oracle. Oracle characters might really like this one, as it's a very contemplative type god, and very good for different types of clerics as well. Areas of concern are Jade, the Moon, and Spirits. And I'll read the edicts and anathema here, because I feel like it'll make it easier to understand what the god is about. So Skio provides aid and counsel without judgment to those who seek help the dead find their rest, amplify or help speak for the powerless and demonized. Anathema is to harm another out of envy, force aid on those who do not want it, inflict harmful mental effects on others as punishment, knowingly hurt the innocent, and or commit murder. So a very, good aligned god. You can choose to be holy for this one. And yeah, honestly, just like a very solid god that can fit a lot of different styles of characters, as long as you're playing like a generally good kind of character. For the cleric spells here, we have Soothe, Peaceful Bubble, and Hallucination. So really good defensive healing quality spells. Divine attributes are Constitution and Intelligence with a divine skill in Occultism, which is pretty interesting. Divine Haunt is only heal, and we have the domains of Delirium, Moon, Repose, and Soul, with the alternate domain of Change. And the favored weapon is the Spear. I'm always a big Spear fan, so having their divine weapon be Spear is really good. It's a simple weapon, but can be thrown 20 feet, and as well, it with divine simplicity, it can be brought up to a D8, which actually makes a pretty good thrown weapon overall. Great for a returning rune type weapon. So that's it. And I believe, the avatar must be somewhere else because it's not here. So Skio is definitely a very interesting god, very, very mystic. So a very good mysticism god, if that is the kind of idea you want to take for your character. We have another god here that I'm so thankful for the pronunciation guide, because this is Yi I Gen. So Yi I Gen. I wouldn't ever have guessed that. This is like the assassin god, but it's like divine punishment in a sense. Not necessarily an inherently evil god. You can be essentially a divine assassin if necessary. That's mostly what this god is all about. Is the minister of blood, seeks out and enforces divine justice for better or ill. Do no anything to ensure that those who deserve punishment get it. The god of harsh justice, murder, and punishment. The edicts are commit assassinations for hire, so you must be an assassin if you want to follow this god as like a cleric or champion. Strike unseen and carry out punishment for convicted criminals. Anathema is to show mercy to a target, take credit for your assassinations, refuse to punish a lawfully convicted criminal, and slaughter indiscriminately. So very interesting, really good. I think this is a very fun god to follow, not as a cleric or champion, but I do like the idea of a assassin style champion as well. So can be really fun. The divine attributes for this one is dexterity and intelligence. Makes a lot of sense with a divine skill of stealth. So really good for our would-be potential assassins. And the cleric spells are Sure Strike, Invisibility, and Mislead. Perfect again for our potential assassins, though Assassin War Priest might still be good. I don't know. Very potentially interesting. Divine Font is Harm, with the divine sanctification being either choosing to be holy or unholy. So yeah, no matter how you do it, you can be an anti-hero or you can be a hero. As long as the villain dies, no matter what, you'll be happy. Very cool. Domains are Death, Duty, Pain, and Trickery, with the alternate domain of Darkness. And the favored weapon is the Shuriken, which is pretty obvious by Yi Gen's symbol that we have here. The Shuriken is an agile thrown weapon with a range of 20 feet and does a d4. It also has the monk trait. Not the best thrown weapons. It's a dart weapon as well, if that matters to you. So as far as favorite weapons are concerned, not that great if you're asking me personally. But, again, if you're not pursuing a cleric or champion, you can just kind of use whatever. Avatar is really good. We have a speed of 70 feet with immunity to being immobilized. Melee weapon is the Hidden Blade, which is agile, reach 15, and versatile piercing. It does 4d6 slashing damage plus 2d6 persistent bleed. Really good bleed damage. And as well, the ranged weapon is the Bow Shuriken, which is a reach of 50 feet and reach 50 feet. Bow Shuriken. Wouldn't it just be range? Or is it a weapon you can pull back to yourself? Actually, I don't know. Is Bow Shuriken a weapon? No, it's not. Ranged reach 50 feet. That's probably an error, if I was to say. that probably should be range 50 feet. Because right, let's see here. 1 second, I need to go back quite a ways to actually get to a god that has a, range 120. I don't know. I don't know exactly. I think that's a flaw. I think that should just be it's a thrown weapon, so reach or range. I don't know. Versatile P does 66 plus 3 slashing damage. Obviously, you want to use the Hidden Blade, though I find the Hidden Blade idea very funny for an avatar spell because it's a very obvious spell effect. So, yeah. But Yaejin is definitely a very interesting god and perfect for anyone who wants to follow like the assassin line with a more Tian Xia kind of twist. And we are to the final god here. I've been recording for an hour and a half at this point, though I'm sure for many of you it's been much, much shorter. But this is Yamatsumi, the mountain lord, god of mountains, volcanoes, and winter. A very simple god by the aspects of if you respect mountains, if you respect like giants or like Oni, even though he has no direct relations to such things. Definitely an interesting god. The edicts are to strive to be self-sufficient, respect nature, test yourself and against the elements. So actually not a bad god to follow for, some Tian Xia style of rangers, which I think is really cool. The anathema are to become reliant on civilization, destroy something without creating or growing something in its place. Actually, an interesting god to follow as a druid potentially as well. I could definitely see a fire or earth or even ice style of druid to kind of follow after Yamatsumi as well. His divine attributes are strength and wisdom, with athletics being the divine skill, which is really, really good. The cleric spells are Shockwave, Shifting Sand, and Volcanic Eruption, with the divine font of Harm or Heal. You can choose to be holy for divine sanctification, and domains are Cold, Earth, Fire, Might, with the favored weapon of the Great Club. The second god, I think, with the Great Club weapon. A very interesting one. The Great Club being a very hard-hitting martial weapon, does a D10, has the backswing and the shove traits, making it perfect for bullies. Honestly, Yamatsumi is pretty good. Let's go ahead and take a look at the avatar spell. So we have a speed of just 50 feet. Not the worst, but not a lot going for it. Melee is the Great Club with backswing, reach, and 15 feet. Again, I don't know why they always lose shove. But the damage is really good with 66 plus 8 bludgeoning damage, and his range is Molten Boulder, which is a range 80 feet, and it does 3d6 plus 3 bludgeoning damage and 3d6 fire damage, being on the side of the stronger range weapons that we have access to. Also, I just love the design. I love the magma beard along with the kind of curling goat horns, and I love the ice kind of mountain club that he uses. So yeah, that is all the gods, but we're not quite done yet. We do have the interesting new rituals. So we have the new rituals, which are called tests of virtue. And oftentimes these provide you a feat, a free feat, a feat that doesn't take any of your feat slots, essentially, at the cost of one, using the ritual, and two, following its anathema. If you break its anathema, you lose the power until you go through the atone ritual, in which you can try these again. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. First, we have Perfection of Essence. Now, this is a level 10 or rank 10 ritual. So this is end game. This is very expensive. It also costs 45,000 gold pieces. Now, it does require the primary caster be expert in crafting, which is not too terrible considering the rank. And secondary check is either medicine or religion. And you only need one secondary caster. And honestly, this is a pretty simple one. Is you just need to survive consuming an incredibly dangerous poison. So, yeah. Now, the anathema for this ritual is determined at the time of the ritual. So, you choose an anathema, and the GM chooses two anathema. You're aware of all your anathemas, so none of them can be hidden from you. And if you break any of them, you need to go through the atone ritual. So, you have three anathema in order to get this one, and let's go ahead and take a look at this poison you have to drink. So it's a DC 43 fort save with an onset of 1 hour, a maximum duration of 5 days. Now, the first stage, the stage you must take, is 7d12 spirit damage, plus you become doomed 1. Now, after an hour, you need to make another save. If you fail, you take 9d12 spirit damage and are confused for a minute, which that part's very dangerous. And once every 1d4 minutes, plus doomed 2. And after another hour, we have stage 3, which is 9d12 spirit damage in doom 3. And after a day, you die. So, yeah, very rough one in all things consideration. But we're going through, we have 3 anathema. We have to consume and survive this terrible poison. What do we get for it? So, we'll read the success here because that's the main body of the effects. So, you've purified your body enough to attempt to attain immortality. You're bound by the ritual's anathema and must ingest the final portion to complete your apotheosis, which is the poison. Once you withstood the effects of the poison for 1 day or completely recover from the poison's effect without outside assistance, you cannot have outside assistance, you gain immortality as follows. You don't age unless you wish to. You can't die except due to old age. So you can't be killed and you don't age, but you can only die to aging. So yeah, your character becomes actually immortal, unless you wish to, of course. And you can't die, if your dying or doomed condition would increase to a high enough value to kill you, it doesn't increase and any effect that would instantly kill you instead just reduces you to 0 hit points. If you ever truly die and aren't returned to life within 1 year, you descend from heaven as an adult into a new mortal body somewhere in the world, which is really interesting. Now, if you crit succeed the ritual, you choose one anathema and the GM chooses one anathema. So you have one less anathema. And if you fail, your actions don't achieve immortality and you automatically fail the first save against the poison. So yeah, you are more likely to die and then critical fail as failure, except the poison is also virulent. So you take the poison, you don't even go through the effects until after the ritual is done. You do the ritual, and then an hour after the ritual was essentially performed is when you start going through the poison. If after a day or fully recovered without aid, you then get the effects of the success. So a very, very powerful ritual, one that will make your character actually immortal, not just ageless, but immortal. Very cool, very, very interesting, and very, very fun. Next up, we have Power of Beasts. Now, this one is going to be predominantly for characters who are using only unarmed strikes. Now, this is a ritual that's only rank 2. It only has a cost of 150 gold pieces and requires 1 secondary caster. The primary caster must be an expert in athletics, which is very interesting. And the secondary check can be cooking, lore, crafting, or religion. So this particular ritual is very cool. And the only anathema is to use a weapon. If you use a weapon, you lose the effects of this particular ritual. Now, the ritual itself is based on what you do for it. So on success, you must defeat 2 enemies who are, or you must have defeated an enemy 2 or more sizes larger than you in single combat, and then you gain the Titan Wrestler feats. Now, on crit success, all you need to do is fight an enemy that is, or 3 enemies that are larger than you, 1 size larger than you. So for success, it needs to be 2 or more. So if you're a medium creature, they must be huge or larger creatures. And this must be in single combat. So you have to do this yourself. So obviously, crit successing is easier because then you only need to go and fight like several trolls, for instance. And then you can get the benefits of Titan Wrestler. And if you fail, you drink the soup and wine, but the understanding eludes you. And if you crit fail, you're sickened 2 for 1 week, during which the conditions can't be reduced, which is terrible. But yeah, this one ritual gives you access to Titan Wrestler. Not a bad one. A skill feat is most of these are. I don't know how often you might go for this one, but if the ritual is available to you and you got 150 gold pieces, I don't know, it could be good, especially if you're playing like a monk character who really wants to go into acrobatic stuff. This is a good way to pick up a skill feat without using one of your skill feat slots you might use for acrobatic things. So, that being the case, Power of the Beasts is a pretty decent ritual, in my opinion. Seed of Mercy. This is a very strange one and very particular. So, you do need to have a potent medicine valued at 200 gold pieces. This does require only one secondary caster. The primary caster must have expert in medicine, but the secondary caster can use either nature or religion. And yeah, so the main core theme of this one is you must nurture a bird, an injured bird, back to health, and then the bird will fly away and come back with a seed that you must then water to keep it. And you must water this seedling with one bulk of pure spring water a day, and or it's left unattended in dangerous circumstances, it will wither. So if you don't water, or if it's left in a dangerous circumstance, it will wither and you fail. So what do we get? What do we get for helping a bird and planting a tree here, right? So you on success, you nurse the bird back to health. It returns to you with the seed that when you planted and watered grows into a sprout with a single flower. Once you cared for it for a week, you gain the toughness feat. If you lose toughness due to violating the ritual's anathema, you lose a number of hit points equal to the decrease in your maximum hit points. So yeah, not only do you lose the maximum hit points, but you also lose additional HP on top of that. On critical success, the sprout also grows a single fruit, after which you care for it for a week. Removing the fruit causes the sapling to wither, but the fruit can be eaten as a moderate healing potion. So, I don't know. So, this was a weird one because many of them have anathema that you have to kind of like keep moving forward. And the anathema for this one states here it's anathema to this ritual to let the sprout wither, and doing so immediately ends its benefit. If the ritual is ended in this way, you must conduct an atone ritual to do it. So I don't know if like you just I don't know if you take care of it for a week and then you need to keep watering it to get the benefits of toughness, which is a little bit much. It's very weird that on critical success you can just fail the ritual and get a moderate healing potion fruits. That seems very expensive for a moderate healing potion. So, okay. My assumption in this is that this is a one-time kind of ritual deal. So, after a week of tending to this on a normal success, you gain the toughness feat. Though it says if you lose toughness due to violating the ritual's anathema, you lose a number of hit points. Water seed, when planted in water, grows in sprout. Once you've cared for it for a week, you gain toughness. But how do you break the... So, I don't know. I don't know. This ritual is actually kind of poorly written because I don't know what the anathema is supposed to be. If you let the sprout wither ever, it just breaks the anathema. But the crit success for this effect withers the plants and gives you a healing potion, but you just lose toughness. And this is a healing potion. I might add that is at valued 200 gold pieces. I don't know. This ritual's very bad. I guess I don't know. Let's read the failure and crit failure. Maybe they'll elucidate more. Failure: you aren't able to heal the bird, but you help its passing to be as painless as possible. Sad. So sad. And crit failure: you attempt to heal the bird, causes it great suffering. Another bird brings you a seed that, if you plant it, will grow into a gourd that releases a small demon to attack you. But how? I mean, it says if planted. You would know if you crit fail the check. It's not a secret check, I don't believe. So, in knowing this ritual and knowing its effects, when you see the bird you're taking care for die, you're like, I probably should have planted the seed. A demon might attack me. I don't like this ritual. Seed of Mercy is the most bonkers, weird ritual I can assume. Now, under the most gracious, beneficial look, Once you take care of it for a week, you're done with the ritual. You have toughness forever, and nothing can break it, even though it's been mentioned here, violating the anathema. Oh, okay. Yes, but no. So I understand now. So when you succeed the ritual is when you get the seed and you have to start taking care for it. You have to take care for it for a week, and once you do, you gain the toughness feat. So that's what happens. And if you during that week fail to take care of the sprout, so when the ritual happens, doesn't ensure that the plant is going to succeed. So you have to take care of it for a week. Once you do, you now will have toughness. But if you fail to do that in that week, you instead lose a number of hit points that it would have given you, which doesn't seem to be permanent. You just lose that HP. So it's the second you lose, the second it withers, you suddenly lose a bunch of HP. And if you crit succeed, then you gain an additional healing fruit in addition to doing the ritual. So honestly, this is not a bad ritual with that in consideration. So as long as you manage to take care of the plant, you gain toughness, and then there's no way to lose it afterwards. Though I do like the idea of intentionally failing this one to get a little gourd that can release a small demon. It attacks you specifically, but I mean, like someone could steal the seed and plant it and then stick the little demon on you. Seed of Mercy is weird, but as far as rituals are concerned, it is one of the ones where it's hardest to lose access to the feat it gives you. So I guess it's a pretty good ritual. All right, next up we have Unseeing Blade Master. This is a rank 6 ritual spell, so you have to be level around 11 to get use of this. This is really good if you plan on playing a character who's blind, but really rough if you plan on playing a character who's blind up to 11th level. Now, this ritual does have a cost of rare incenses worth 1.5 thousand gold pieces. It only does require one secondary caster. Now, the primary caster must have Master in Perception, which means I don't think every class gets Master in Perception, actually. Maybe they do. I don't know. But some of them, I think, get it really late, which is very weird. Now, the secondary caster can use Religion or Warfare lore, which is kind of cool. And so, this is a very simple ritual. If you ever see or regain vision again, you break the anathema. Now, the whole point is making a strike against an enemy you can see is an anathema. So I guess it's only making a strike against a creature you can see as an anathema. So when you're fighting, you must be blind. But what do we get for this ritual? So on success, you call the blessing into your sword to guide you on your path and are bound by the ritual's anathema. Once you've used that sword against 20 enemies, blind, each significant enough to grant XP, you gain the blind fight feat, which is pretty cool. And that's actually a actual class feat rather than a skill feat. Now, if you crit succeed, you instead just need to defeat an enemy in single combat with that both uses a sword and is higher level than you. So you can defeat a higher level enemy in single combat who's also using a sword. Crit successing does not seem super worth it, in my opinion. That seems way harder than just fighting 20 enemies and getting XP. And that one doesn't even need to be single combat. Now, on failure, the incense is dispersed by a strange gust of wind and you learn nothing. On crit failure, the sword you're intending to use for the ritual becomes broken. If you aren't permanently blind, you instead become blind for a month and can't repeat the ritual during that time. But you don't need to atone to try doing it again. So a really cool way to get a class speed, to get blind fight, which can be very, very useful. But if you ever strike an enemy while being able to see them, you break the anathema. So that being the case, if the ritual is ended this way, you must atone. Yeah, so this is a very interesting one. It's a really good way to play a blind character and to get the blind fight feat without maybe necessarily being a fighter or other class that might get access to it. But a very difficult one, I think, overall, as blind is a pretty serious condition. Next up, we have Wild Allegiance. This is a rank 3 ritual, so not as high level. You need animal food with a total value of 150 gold pieces. It requires one secondary caster. The primary check is Diplomacy, in which you need to be expert, but the secondary check can be Nature or Religion. And this is an interesting one. It gives you access to a pretty okay feat, but not one I'm very excited about. So the anathema for this one is wantonly killing an animal, which is something that like is not going to happen too often. Wantonly means like just doing it for the sake of doing it out of lack of care. Most characters wouldn't do something like this anyway, so breaking the anathema is pretty hard. So on success of the ritual, what do we get? So you declare your allegiance to the wild and are bound by the ritual's anathema, but you still must prove yourself. Once you've non-violently resolved conflict with 3 different animals of a higher level than yours, you gain animal empathy, which is a feat that lets you essentially ask like favors of animals, and they're likely to listen to what you say. It's an okay feat, but man, non-violently resolving conflicts with 3 different animals that are higher level than you is really rough. Really okay, I guess, if you have similar features or abilities. Like with animal empathy, it would be very easy to do this, which makes it very ironic. Not a very interesting feat, in my opinion, but again, I guess if you have access to it and it's something you want, like why not? Now, on critical success, you only need to resolve one conflict with one creature of animal level 15 or higher, which, ugh, again, another crit success where I just don't know if it's worth it because you can do both, obviously, but it's like a level 15 or higher creature, not like it's a conflict. So, I mean, like, that's very narrative based because you're not making any checks affecting your creature of that level. Now, if you fail, you don't impress the gods of the wilds and you just don't get the effects. If you crit fail the ritual, you've deeply offended the gods you were trying to impress, and they send a sign of displeasure, often an animal, to attack you. You must condone and atone ritual before attempting. So, if you crit fail this, you're suddenly attacked by a wild animal, which is hilarious. So, Wild Agent is interesting, very cool. Not one I would actively pursue, but I guess Animal Empathy has some really good roleplay potential and has some good out of combat, obviously, like potential for some situations. So, I guess if it's there, you might as well try, right? All right, and that is all the character options. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. This video has taken me 2 hours to record. I don't think actually the video will be that long though, all things considered. Hopefully I managed to cut down a lot of the time, but there's a lot of really cool character options here, a lot of fun things, and I hope this video was helpful in providing to you guys really good information or another reason to buy the Tian Xia World Guide. And as I said, if you want to know more of the interesting lore bits, go check out Glue Boy's channel here. He talks all about that kind of stuff. But I'm tired, and that's going to be it for me. So thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me. And good luck with your tests of virtue. Bye.